Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this podcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is Disclosure Tonight. Happy Friday, November 28th, Black Friday. Hopefully you took advantage of those deals at retail these days, my friends, or online. It's a great way to go ahead and get your Christmas shopping done early. On that note, let's go ahead and take a look at who we have out in the audience right now, coming to us from our chat. Oh, wrong one. I got to go over here and say participants. Who do we have out there? I see Amiga Rules. April's here along with Brains. Christine Lynn is in the chat along with Craig Smith. Carl Garrison just showed up. We got Eliza Teal, Evan B. Fireflies here along with Geraldine Durazio. Gizmo's here, and I see Grateful Benny is around. Good to see you, Benny. We got Gray Hair Discoveries is back once again. Gizmo's here. Great. Actually, just call them Hawaii. 5-0 is around, and as well as Jake, not from State Farm. Long time no see, Jake. We got Jan Kelly. Kane Northrup is here along with Kelly Broughton, those piercing blue eyes. Good to see you, Kelly. We've got Lon and Matt Trummus. All those numbers at the end of the names make it so easy to see everybody's names not. We got Megan Betts, Mr. V. Brading. Roni Deals here along with Russ Freddy. We got Sam, Shelley Montgomery, Steve Hines, the Chromosome Cowboys here, all the way from down under. Let's welcome the Demon. The Wasteland is here as well. Treesaw TV. We've got Troy, Turtlehead, 420. Benny is around. I think we had two midgets on a horse around as well. And let's round this up with Yankee. Good to see you, my friends, and welcome to Disclosure Tonight. Mike, my friend, how you doing? Mike. Oh.
Yeah, Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. Sorry, the mute button was on. This is going to be an interesting show. We're going to try to catch up on what's been going on.
Oh, yeah. Bunch of stuff happening out there, my friend. Yeah, it seems the age of disclosure is about the only disclosure that's getting discussed these days. But we do have a video that came out from Christopher Mellon a couple days ago, talking about the age of disclosure. More importantly, that the Air Force must testify under oath. I think he knows something we all know as well. Yeah, it's been a cover-up, my friend. It's something that the U.S. Air Force was actually put together in 1947, within months after Roswell, I should say weeks for that matter, that we actually got the paperwork from the presidency to start both the Air Force and the CIA to deal with that pesky flying saucer problem, as they called it back in the time. Mike, let's go ahead and get this video up because we've got a bunch of stuff it seems to talk about today.
You do. This is going to be a fun conversation. We also have our friend Reverend Darren Reed with us, so
nice.
It's going to be a good conversation, yeah.
Yeah, he's someone out there who's actually standing up for disclosure on X. Good to have him around, and can't wait to see what he has to talk about today. Let's go ahead and get this video playing, and here we go.
My name is Chris Mellon. I spent approximately 20 years in the U.S. intelligence community, both in the Defense Department and on Capitol Hill with the Senate Intelligence Committee. The other day I had the opportunity to see the new UAP documentary, Age of Disclosure, and after reflecting on it, I prepared a few remarks that I hope will be of assistance to Congress. In the new UAP documentary, Age of Disclosure, we learned that the Air Force had a secret program to track UAP in the vicinity of Area 51 and other sensitive military facilities in the 1990s. This report comes from none other than General James Clapper, former Director of U.S. Air Force Intelligence and former Director of National Intelligence. Does that secret Air Force UAP program continue to this day? Where is the data? What did the Air Force learn? Moreover, why is it that when Congress asked the services for UAP information in their possession in the 2020 Intelligence Authorization Bill, the Air Force denied having any pertinent information other than a handful of very recent innocuous reports submitted after DoD guidance was finally issued in 2020 requiring all military components to report UAP sightings? In my view, the Air Force brass treat Congress with contempt, even if not in a strictly illegal manner. I also believe that the secret Air Force UAP program described by General Clapper or another like it, remains quietly active behind the scenes. I say this because it would explain a number of things. For example, why is it that Air Force F-22s, despite having greatly superior sensors, did not report UAP operating in DoD training areas off the East Coast when Navy F-18s were routinely detecting and reporting UAP on the same ranges? Why is it the U.S.'s Princeton radar data from the Nimitz case disappeared after U.S. Air Force officers visited the ship? In fact, there are many similar cases where Navy data was removed by U.S. Air Force personnel. Similarly, why are the Nimitz deck logs missing for precisely the period of Princeton UAP tracking back in 2004? Why is it the Air Force never reports UAP detected by its strategic radar systems? These solid-state phased array radars are believed to be the most powerful emitters on the planet. Yet despite their massive range and constant coverage, even when UAP are detected operating for days directly in front of these powerful emitters, the Air Force fails to issue any UAP reports. Why is it that none of the innumerable NORAD UAP intercept cases from recent decades were submitted with the 2021 UAP report to Congress, including the famous UAP case over the Bush Ranch in Texas, where F-16 pilots were made to sign NDAs by the Air Force? As recently as last year, the Air Force was still refusing to provide NORAD UAP intercept data to DoD's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office in Congress. Why are there no reports of UAP in space despite a massive U.S. Air Force space surveillance capability? Why is it that the Air Force seized Navy sonar data obtained after an encounter by a U.S. nuclear submarine with an underwater UAP? In sum, I believe the Air Force is treating Congress contemptuously when it comes to dodging formal congressional requests for Air Force UAP data. It seems likely the Air Force has either carefully marshaled all of its UAP data into an obscure, highly secret, quote, WAVE special access program that even the chair and ranking members of the intelligence committees are not cleared for, or that the Air Force is using Atomic Energy Act or other authorities to justify concealing this UAP information. For example, the Air Force might claim they are merely the executive agent for CIA or the National Nuclear Security Agency, and that reporting of this data is therefore not their responsibility. Their counterpart agency might claim the reverse, leaving Congress uninformed as the, quote, deep state exploits a fissure in the current congressional military and intelligence reporting framework. Regardless, it is time for Congress to put the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, the Secretary of the Air Force, and the Director of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations under oath in a secure hearing room to get to the bottom line. Enough games. It is past time for the appropriate committees on the Hill to go directly to the source. While the Armed Services and/or DoD Appropriations subcommittees confront the Air Force leadership, the intelligence committees can do their corresponding part by placing the CIA's Deputy Director for Science and Technology and Director of Operations under oath. The American people want and need the U.S. Air Force to be as effective and successful as possible in maintaining control of U.S. airspace and providing support to U.S. military personnel abroad. We now know the Air Force is failing when it comes to intercepting increasingly assertive drones and UAP operating in restricted military airspace. The evidence abounds and includes the Air Force's inability in December 23 to track or deter or intercept the numerous drones that effectively rendered the Air Combat Command at Langley, Virginia, inoperable for weeks. In fact, other U.S. Air Force bases have in similar fashion had to curtail training operations the last few years due to the presence of unexplained aircraft, sometimes drones, sometimes UAP, operating in DoD airspace. UAP incursions over nuclear sites have been going on since World War II. But General Clapper's comments are the first acknowledgement of a secret U.S. Air Force UAP program operating as recently as the 1990s. Indeed, this secret program may go all the way back to the 1950s and be part of a larger ongoing program, perhaps one that includes attempts to reverse engineer recovered UAP technology. Congress clearly needs this data to assess the potential threat to the nation and the adequacy of U.S. Air Force plans and capabilities to deal with any threat. The disinformation and withholding of vital air defense data have been allowed to continue for far too long. The solution is simple. Bring the Air Force leadership to the Hill and compel them to divulge the data General Clapper referred to alongside any other pertinent UAP information that has not previously been shared with Congress. I believe this would reveal incredible, possibly even transformational video radar reports and other objective sensor data that has been hidden from the Congress, the scientific community, and the American people for decades. Since over 25 years have elapsed, the information from the 1990s should also be subject to automatic declassification. This is a huge opportunity for Congress and the public. One can only hope the committees charged with national security responsibilities will take prompt action. Thank you for considering my views.
Interesting conversation, Mike, I have to say. Let me get us into the conversation here. Here we go.
Yeah, it is. But listen, we know the Air Force isn't going to be bringing any of the truth out that everybody has been wanting for almost 80 years now.
But interesting that Mellon brought up that the Air Force could be using the DOE to perpetuate the cover-up, which I don't think the standard levels of declassification we have, of how all things have to be declassified after how many every years it was, that applies to all parts of the government except the DOE. Right.
So they could hide it there indefinitely, which is what they've been doing for almost 80 years now.
The Department of Energy orchestrated out of the executive branch. It seems to be that's where it's going, or it isn't.
Yeah, like a partnership in hell.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things. Yeah, you know, two words. Anytime you hear the word national security, friends, yes, that is your excuse or opportunity to take a shot, because that's what it seems like. Everything with national security, we heard it probably 50, 100, at least felt like it at least 50 times in the age of disclosure, just one time after another. And that's the main reason that they keep everything covered up. It's like, you know, when they gave us the National Security Act of 1947, it actually turned us, I've said this a bunch of times, I'll say it a bunch of times more, it turned us from the United States of America to the national security state of America. And it took away more rights than people realize and lets the government cover up far more too many things that they should be covering up.
Yeah, it's true. And this has been ongoing. Until the President of the United States steps forward and declassifies this information, it's not going to come when people want it to come from the usual sources.
No.
It's buried too far down. They're not going to do that.
No. But, you know, as we're talking about before the show, just bring out the truth. If all we're going to get out, we'll get to that in a little bit. I'm jumping my horses here because we got more videos to play, more things to go ahead and cover with regards to it. We've got a in-depth look at, if you want to call it, Brett Breyer's reporting on the secret government UAP programs. Are there other, if you want to call it, non-human intelligences visiting us? It's more of kind of an overview, but it's a nice little aside to go ahead and give ourselves a watch here. Let me go ahead and bring up this video here coming to us from Fox News Report. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was also the one that did the recent David Grush interview.
He seems to be picking up where Tucker Carlson left off. Exactly. So let's go ahead and let's get this next clip up here for audience, and then we've got a bunch of stuff eventually we'll be talking about tonight. So let's get this up, and all right, folks, here we go.
Over the last several weeks, we've brought to you interviews with a UFO whistleblower, a director who spoke with dozens of officials about possible secret government programs. And tonight, Brett Baer takes a closer look at some of those claims and speaks with a UAP researcher about what they are calling a government cover-up.
Thanks, Aisha. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle and other government officials believe they should know more about unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. Tonight we look at reports on some of the secret government programs that are being alleged.
This is so secret. There have been very few people in our entire government that have been allowed or provided access to it.
A new documentary featuring former and current officials from across the federal government is attempting to connect the dots on secret knowledge of UAPs.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
CIA officials, DIA officials, naval intelligence officials, the list goes on and on.
I served as the 4th Director of National Intelligence.
Director of Aviation Security in the National Security Council.
One-star admiral after 32 years of service.
Former Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet served as the Navy's chief oceanographer and meteorologist, and as acting administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Why'd you take part in that? And of the voices in there, are you convinced that these are credible folks that are really coming forward for the first time?
All those folks are credible, Brett. They're all colleagues of mine. I've worked with them for years. This is going to change the arc of human history. The fact that we're not alone in the universe and that higher order non-human intelligences are visiting us and interacting with us, whose intent we really are unsure of still. That's just mind-blowing.
Not everyone is convinced by the film. The New York Times writes the claims are unprovable, and Variety calls it inconclusive. For us to be comfortable doing stories about it, we have to believe that these documents and these experts that we're talking to are telling us the right thing. How do you think the country, the world, will react when, if this happens, it's disclosed?
You have a slow process of information coming out of government, mostly from Congress, from intelligence community officials who've retired. And what we're seeing is that despite the amount of coverage on this, there isn't a lot of pickup on it in media, and people aren't really absorbing the significance of it.
Anthropologist Peter Skafish is co-founder and director of research at the Sol Foundation, a group that helps fund research into UAPs. Skafish interviews and conducts field work with witnesses.
I've had a lot of conversations with retired intelligence community people who have more or less verified this stuff to me directly.
How many people know this?
This has been an 8-decade cover-up. The total list has to amount to 100 or more.
Presidents have access to all classified information, but it's unlikely the commander-in-chief reviews everything on any specific subject. Officials estimate there are billions of classified documents in existence, and as many as 50 million classified records are added every year.
Various presidents have been told, but many have not been told.
Retired Colonel Carl Nell was the Army director for supporting the UAP task force. Why would a president not be told?
There was a feeling that elected officials might not be sophisticated or intellectual enough to deal with that kind of complexity.
The Sol Foundation alleges in a report the Eisenhower administration issued a directive giving UFO decision-making the same status as nuclear war powers.
A man whom I trust from the Air Force has said that it was, as far as he knew, it was completely inaccurate to believe that they came from any outside or planet or otherwise.
The presidents, who have asked for briefings on UAPs, say they have not learned of any suspected cover-ups.
So far as I know, they're not hiding information.
It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer.
Nell believes presidents could be uninformed because he says private companies oversee the programs.
Eisenhower administration may have allowed this to slip out of elected official control into an unelected body that would manage these programs.
You understand the skeptics, right? The people who say this is complete BS. This can't be true. You understand where they're coming from, that there's nothing to show besides the, these videos and the testimony. But for them, they haven't seen it in person.
Sure.
To confirm it.
100%, Brett. Yeah, we want that smoking gun. We want the evidence, the data. And I mean, the most I have knowledge of, though, that was convincing to me is I saw the classified videos that have since been declassified, taken by Navy F-18 aircraft.
In 2015, Gallaudet was commanding personnel during a naval exercise off the East Coast when he received an email warning of near mid-air collisions. Attached was a video of the suspected threat. Gallaudet says the next day the email disappeared from his account. The Pentagon would eventually declassify the video more than 5 years later.
The Navy is sitting on a trove of UAP video data that they're not releasing.
That video and others prompted lawmakers to call for more transparency. Congress has requested reports from the Defense Department on sightings, and in each document, investigators found no links to extraterrestrial sources.
We take all incursions into our operating spaces seriously.
The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office is the government's current group looking into UAPs. Its findings have been consistent with past Pentagon investigations.
To date, Arrow has found no verifiable evidence for claims that the U.S. government or private companies have access to or have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology.
Some former officials claim the U.S. government does have evidence.
We learned that the U.S. government was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans.
Somewhere in this country, there are craft that are being held that have landed here or crashed here, and there are biologics, non-human bodies.
That's correct.
Someplace in this country?
Someplace.
In this program?
Correct.
The AARO has acknowledged an effort to create a UAP recovery program called Kona Blue, but says it was later canceled because it lacked merit, that no extraterrestrial craft or non-human entities were ever collected.
Knowing what you know, is it conceivable there could be a government program that you don't know about?
I think it's conceivable that there are government programs that we don't know about.
Democratic Arizona Senator Mark Kelly logged more than 5,000 flying hours during his time in the Navy and spent more than 50 days in outer space as a shuttle pilot.
Has anything happened in space or at the International Space Station that might signal that there's alien life out there?
So I have made 4 trips to the space station, all about 2 weeks in length, over a decade. And I have no personal experience with this. I have 54 days in space, which might sound like a lot. My twin brother, 520 days in space. People often look at him and say, hey, you must have seen something in all that time you've spent in space. And the answer is the same as the answer for me. Haven't seen anything that indicates anything visiting, our planet.
Obviously, there's a lot of interest in these stories. Some people call it crazy, but these reports are happening. We'll continue to follow the UAP stories as more information comes to light, and we'll see how the Trump administration responds to all these reports.
There we go, Mike, kicking it back once again to the Trump administration. Our current president. Granted, we haven't had anything yet, but, there's been a lot of conversations going on lately. You've heard of them. We've talked about it. And it seems that he may be aware of it, and maybe it's something that he might address. But if we get there, the only thing we're going to get is an acknowledgement of the presence being here. Not that we have craft, not that we have one screw or scrap of metal, not that we have any biologics or bodies or living entities like it's been claimed by others like David Grush and such. And it's a sad part of it, but it's one little step that could get us to a whole different way of looking at things.
Well, listen, we got a taste of what this would be like after President Barack Obama left office. He went on a late night talk show and he said there are objects in our skies that move in characteristics that we're not familiar with and we don't know what they are. That sounds to me like what we might get from this president.
Acknowledgement, but not, if you want to call it, hard verification of facts or other things. Now, one thing I do want to point out is in all the statements coming from the Department of Defense, everything they reference to it, Mike, uses the word extraterrestrial entities or extraterrestrial aliens, right? If they know these things aren't extraterrestrial, they can go ahead and say that because they've put it in a very small, confined box that limits it to a particular exposure. And if they have any other thought or doubt it could be something else besides this, we don't have anything to prove that there's extraterrestrials visiting this planet. And they may not have it because they just may not know where they're coming from.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right about that.
I mean,
go ahead.
No, Christopher Sharp from the Liberation Times even reached out to Susan Goff specifically about that, asking her if they're willing to go ahead and change the classification from calling everything being extraterrestrial to something else more innocuous like NHI. And he got back was a hard answer of no.
Right. Because what else is he going to say at this point? You either divulge all the information to the public or you deny it across the board. That's about it. It's not going to go beyond that. And that's unfortunately where we seem to be stuck at.
Yeah. Oh,
I wish it was different, but it's not right now.
It's not, but hopefully we can. Luckily this stuff is being covered on Fox. We know the president likes to watch Fox News for that matter on a very regular basis. So hopefully he's seen this stuff. Hopefully it's something, Don Jr.'s talked about this in the past. All the hard hitters in his administration, whether it's the head of the CIA, the director of national intelligence, or Secretary of State and head of the National Archives, Marco Rubio, everybody out there has, some stake in this to a degree. They've all talked about it in the past in depth.
Right. Yeah, they have gone out of their way to let the public know that they know that there is something here with us, but the proof is not something they're able to provide. And without it, we're not going to get any additional information at this point moving forward.
No. Well, we can hope for something. Don't hold your breath.
Right.
Maybe something will happen. Maybe it won't, but it's something we can potentially look for. Now, I know we were going to have, there was an interview on Fox that happened a bit ago, and we were going to get some statements. No, actually, no, this is not it. Oh, glad I'm not playing this one again. I thought, okay, this one actually has a little bit in the beginning of it, talking from Jay Stratton. Remember, he was supposed to be on an interview with Hannity, and the entire time it was just Dan Farrar talking. I found the opposite of that one, where we actually have Jay Stratton doing some talk in it. So, shall we play that one?
Yeah, please do.
Let's get to it. All right, here we go, everybody.
The best way I can say, Sean, is it's not from here. I spent 20 years researching this topic, working this topic directly on behalf of the American people. And I did everything I could and did confirm that some of the things that they're seeing are obviously, completely terrestrial, whatever word you want to use there, from potential adversary nations, from, defense contractors and companies here, commercial sources. However, there were still cases that we could not attribute to any nation on Earth, and that says a lot.
Do you both believe that they're hostile, Dan? Hostile forces, entities, if you will.
I think that's to be determined. We do not know.
We don't know for sure.
We don't know what their intentions are. Look, I interviewed 34 military government intelligence officials, Sean. They couldn't tell us any better than you could what the intention of non-human intelligent life is, right? All we know is that this is a real situation. It exists. There are UAP penetrating our most sensitive airspace. It is a problem. And even if you can't wrap your head around the idea of it being non-human intelligent life, what are the choices you're left with? An adversarial nation like China or Russia has leapfrogged us technologically and is invading our most classified and protected airspace. That's not great either. So, no matter how you have to look at it to get your head wrapped around it, it's got to become a serious conversation, a serious national conversation, a serious global conversation. And, the film reveals there has been a deeply hidden crash retrieval and reverse engineering program in the United States. China has one, Russia has one. There is, in fact, a high-stakes secret Cold War race. Rubio talks about this race on camera, on the record, in the film, and makes it clear that if we don't get our act together as a nation, we're going to wake up one day. To quote him, he literally says, we will wake up one day and China will have beat us, and we won't know how they got there or when they got there, but we will be screwed.
I'll be watching myself.
Yeah, no, interesting words to hear from, if you want to call it, coming from Jay Stratton. It comes down to the whole point, Mike, whether we know whether or not that the, if you want to call it, the non-human intelligence is friendly or not. It seems to be they are what they are. They're not friendly. They're not good. They're not evil. They're very evasive. They like to hide in the shadows. They like to be very covert. I mean, we may likely have been living in, if you want to call it, an occupation since we've been on, since as long as humanity's been on this planet, where they have always been that secret control group that's been around, that's kind of guiding humanity. How we've moved so far in the last 80 years, which is greater than humanity has potentially moved forward in the last 20,000 or 200,000 years, for that matter.
Right.
That's something that demands attention, because all of a sudden we just, the switch didn't flip. Something happened. We got our hands on something. We figured something out, and it's been escalating since then. And it's continuing to escalate.
Yeah, but the truth seems ever to be evasive in all this time.
Yeah.
Nothing concrete, nothing direct, nothing from our government that's overt. It seems to be this game that's been going on the whole time. It's frustrating.
Well, it's very covert. I mean, because you think about this, if they have technology perfected where you can see it with our radar, you can see it with your eyes. The only way you can go ahead and see it is with a $12,000 camera that's used for going ahead and looking for natural gas leaks that can see down to negative 60 degrees Celsius. They've gone more than enough, if you want to call it, to find different ways to allow their covert activities to remain covert, so humans just keep on going along their average stuff. I mean, look at the videos we got from Greg. Greg got it, great videos. He just saw a little dot going around. We dug into it, and there's a whole bunch of phenomena that just doesn't
show up to the naked eye.
It's not to the naked eye, but you look at it based on our technology, based on what we can do as humans, that doesn't make sense, what we're seeing.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
That was one hell of a video.
And if it's going on there, it's possibly going on everywhere. But the thing is, we're too invested in our phones, looking down all the time, right?
Well, yeah, that's true.
We're not looking up in the air. We're not, if you want to call surveilling our own skies. It's like, we don't care so much because we've got so many things going on. That's why if I think, disclosure happens and we get an announcement on a mid-Friday afternoon, it'll cause a lot of talk over the weekend. But by Monday, majority of people, I'd say, 90, are going to be back at their job, focusing on what they're doing. Going back to school, whatever their lives are, but it'll be a conversation that's going to continue. But it's not going to stop the world and, the day the earth stood still. I don't think we'll be getting to that level.
No, not at all. People still have jobs, lives, bills they got to pay. That never stops. So life goes on. And that's why this secret has dragged on as long as it has.
Yeah. I think the closest we may have gotten to a president talking about it, we still talked about it around a little bit, was President Ronald Reagan. I've got a collection of different clips. I know some people have been watching the show for a while, have seen these before, but it's a good one. Let's go ahead and bring this up, Mike, and we can reflect on it.
Let's do that. It's a good idea.
Let's get that. Here we go. And these are mentions of aliens, if you want to call it, the alien threat. And he called it an alien threat, by the way. He called it out as an alien threat. And this is between 1985 and 1988. Here we go.
I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children, wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe.
Really now remember, in the documentary, for those Lou fans out there like us or the people who don't like it, Lou said flat out, there, how did he put it again, Mike? There is a alpha predator on the planet that's above us that we're not the top of the food chain. Implying that that alien threat is here. Let me continue.
We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us we can bring about that realization. In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war? I think maybe I'd answer it this way. I keep, in my frustration sometimes, you know, actually, if you count some of the things going on in smaller countries and all, there have been about 114 wars since World War II. But I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by a power from outer space, from another planet? Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all? We were all human beings, citizens of the world, and wouldn't we come together to fight that particular threat?
Now, one thing I do have to bring up, Mike, are you with me?
Yes, sir, right here.
All right, you're back. Good. All right. If you remember, our current president, Trump, really idolizes Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, so maybe he'll take a hint from his idol and maybe use that to try to make history. A nice thought.
Yeah. You never know where it's going to go. Don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because it could be orange colored, but you know, we want to go ahead and get the truth out of this and whatever it's going to take to get there. We're tired of the cover up. It's been going on for far too long. Talking with Wes, is it Wes in the back? Let me get the name again. Talking with that Wes in the back before the show started. And, you know, who thought that we would be back at this point, Mike, in 2025 with Disclosure, you know, slowing down the way that it is? To a point to where, is it moving forward or is it not moving forward? You know, this is probably the deadest it's been since I've been doing this.
Yeah.
It was about 5 years.
It's quite dead right now, Thomas. There's no UAP hearings. The UAPDA died on the vine 3 times in a row.
I'm not surprised there.
No, not one bit. You and I have been saying this for the longest time.
Yeah.
We called it out the last 3 times running that it wasn't going to pass, and it hasn't. So, yeah, it's gotten extremely quiet, except for the recent documentary, The Age of Disclosure. But some people think that it moved the needle to a degree, and some people don't.
Yeah. Now, the Age of Disclosure did cause a bunch of different scenarios to come in play. One is we had, if I can find it here, Representative Eric Burleson. Let me see if I can get to this over on, get to Ask-a-Poll. Now, Representative Eric Burleson is talking once again about David Grush getting attacked on Twitter, which is kind of old news to a degree. Also, he also brings up and talks about the, if you want to call it, last chance for the UAPD disclosure amendment to possibly happen. It's a long shot, but let's go ahead, and I think Matt is updated with his new microphone. So let me jump to the start of this. Remember, we're a subscriber of Ask-a-Poll, Matt Laszlo at askapolluaps.com. We suggest anyone's out there interested in UAPs, check out Matt, subscribe to him on X, even chip in and help him with his subscriptions. They're not that expensive. It's pretty reasonable, and it's great to see that he covers disclosure as much as he does. I think he's probably the one who's most invested in it these days. Hey, Mike? So let's go ahead.
He's doing amazing work in Congress, better than anybody else. He's there 24/7, covering everything, every aspect of what they're doing over in D.C. So yeah, he's definitely worth supporting.
So let me go ahead and find where I can bring this up. It's not it. Thomas. Where did that go? Give me a second. Not that one. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and play this little clip here of Eric Burleson over on Ask-a-Poll. Let me move it across. Get this on here. No, let's play it. Here we go.
Not yet. No.
One.
How are you, sir? Good.
You got any responses to Iran?
Not yet.
No. Didn't you put a timeline on those?
I would have to go back and look and see what the date that we asked for. It's been a while since I looked at that.
A birdie told me that a trip's gonna prove to Roswell. Will he bomb?
Not yet. And it's not just Roswell.
Oh yeah. Is that going to be other contractors out there? Because like when Gillibrand went to Nevada on her classified code out, she also met with Lockheed and Northrop Grumman because they have big arms out there.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to say the locations because I don't want to tip off. And really specifically, Roswell is the location really for this. So because that's the thing that everybody talks about, but I don't have any belief that there's probably anything there.
Right.
I have a feeling that we'll go and see some pretty cool stuff, but nothing that's like alien related. So
what are they going to do? Go to the fucking museum, Mike?
Yeah,
I had to pause it on this one.
I was just going to say that, Thomas.
Why, it's a tourist destination. It's not like there's any research, but I guess there is the Roswell, New Mexico Air Force Base where they used to have, that's where the Enola Gay and the different bombers that flew in World War II that carried our nuclear arsenal.
29 nuclear bombers
that were based out of there, yeah. But I think some of the legacy hangars that they had there that they were preserving actually burned down about a year and a half ago.
Right. So are they really going there 80 years after the fact to see if there's a craft sticking out of the desert? It doesn't make sense to me. This is a wasted time and a trip.
No, they should go to Wright-Patterson because supposedly that's where they did all the research.
Yeah, but it was moved from there into private contractor, Lockheed Martin.
But based on the sighting that Greg O'Brien got that we covered a couple weeks ago now over north of D.C., I think there may be more things to see at the Lockheed Martin, if you want to call it, headquarters in D.C., because that seems to be where the aliens are hanging out for some reason. Usually where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of activity in that area from what we saw.
Oh, gosh, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, interesting things. Actually, let's get back to the rest of this. Sorry, I had to interrupt for a second. Let's continue on. Here we go.
That's why I don't know. I kind of think that's why I'm looking at other locations, but I don't want to announce those other locations.
Wise. Last question. Oh wait, I haven't seen you since September even. Where'd you be? I know you probably can't answer this, but where'd you get that Hellfire video?
I can't answer that.
Oh, I figured. Did Grush help with it?
No.
Have you seen these attacks on Grush lately?
Yes, I think it's disgusting.
Yeah.
He's a patriot. He served his country. There's an effort to clearly, like, not only besmirch him, but discredit me and anybody that's involved in this. This Age of Disclosure film that's coming out. I hope that generates a lot of buzz. It's a very serious film, and it should be. So we need to take this topic very seriously.
Do you think because the film is out, that's why he's getting attacked?
I think that we've pushed a lot more than Congress has ever been involved in this. You would have to agree with that, right? And I think that the more we're leaning in, the harder the swamp is pushing back.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Interesting. Hey, happy Thanksgiving, sir.
There we go. Interesting conversation with Matt Laszlo. He is the man on the beat, and he knows how to track down the people, even if he is hanging outside the men's restroom, which he's bragged about. Hey, it works.
Yeah, whatever works. I agree.
Gosh, yeah.
But he does good reporting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Talking up. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I really don't know what the hell they're thinking going down to Roswell. That's just a joke, in my opinion. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah. Now, with the Age of Disclosure coming out and everything, if you want to call it, the negative attacks on disclosure and those involved in the disclosure, they've been going after everybody from Lou Elizondo to Gary Nolan to most recently Hell Put-Off and others, and just trying to go ahead and really just trash these people and just throw them under the bus in these conspiracy theories. It's really been ramping up, and we've got a person with us today who's been watching this closely and engaging with these individuals on a lot of different spaces, because they'll say a lot of things there that they don't put in writing. Unless you have an audio clip, they'll deny and everything. And that's why I want to welcome in Darren Reed. Welcome, my friend, if you want to take over on this part, Mike.
Sure. Welcome, Darren. And I also understand that you're doing all of this work because at one point you're planning on releasing a documentary about the activity on social media in regards to this, right, Darren?
Yeah, it's something that I'm currently working on. It's the topic has changed. Originally, it was going to start off as a kind of just as a commentary about social media and its effect in the UFO community, and now it's kind of moved on to kind of basically just what's happening with disclosure and what's happening with social media and the false narratives being kind of ramped up and forced on the public through social media. I think everybody knows that kind of X has become the kind of the clearinghouse for UFO information. That's kind of where everybody meets, where everybody discusses, where everybody talks about the subject. And what I've been finding with my time on X is that there is a band of bad actors. Bad actors who are spreading misinformation, lies, slanders against some of these people who are just trying to get the word out and trying to push the ball across the field. And so I've kind of taken it upon myself to challenge these narratives when I see them, and to challenge these people, and to interact with them and get them maybe to humble themselves a little bit in regards to what they're doing.
Yeah, you've been on top of it for a long time now, Darren, and you really put the extra effort in to try to not really let them get away with a lot of the false information that they've been putting out there. And I think one of the reasons is because there are genuinely people that are not knowledgeable from the general public that come on social media to see if they could find out more information and credible facts about what may or may not be going on. And when they run into these individuals, they're not getting that, are they, Darren?
No, they're in no way getting that. And, especially with, with the release of this, this new documentary, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see an influx of these people coming into the different, social media realms to, to find out more information. And typically what they're going to run into and what you're seeing these days is it's almost like it's a 24-hour cycle. You have these people who can hold spaces all day long, people who can, post all day long and, post these narratives. And, it's, I think it's important that, people have discernment and people, question what they're hearing because, a lot of these narratives that are being put out there just blatantly with no proof, with no, nobody fighting back against what these narratives are. And, they're against people who are honorable, people who are, doing, great things for disclosure, who are moving the ball forward, who are talking to people in government, people like Lou Elizondo, people like David Rush. And, it's these people don't have the time to go, to come on social media and to confront these narratives. So, I kind of figure somebody has to.
Oh, and you're absolutely right. And you're doing a great job. But just so our audience is aware, this is not just a bunch of random accounts on social media that are putting out different messages. It's certain key accounts from certain individuals, like you said, who are in fact putting out this information systematically and putting out the wrong narrative for people that don't know any better to take what they're saying as the truth. And I think people need to know who these accounts are. So if they hear anything coming from them, they know that this is mostly disinformation that's being put out there. And it's Red Panda Koala on Twitter and Tupacabra 2, which is the second account from the first one that was originally banned. But I also wanted to say, Darren, that recently there was a space that was being held, that you held, that Red Panda Koala came in, and you systematically took apart one of his false narratives about an FBI report and CIFA for Lou Elizondo, and proved that his information was just purely speculation, not actual proof, like he likes to tell the public, it's proof, it's proof. It's not proof. It's just his opinion, and you made him eat his words in that space recently. You did a good job.
Yeah, just to give a little bit of background on that, the report that you're talking about was an FBI report that was put out about CIFA. Within that report, Lou Elizondo's name did appear in that report once in the report, and the narrative that was being put across by by these people was that Lou Elizondo, as just kind of going back a little bit, CIFA was involved in some pretty shady things, and some people in CIFA faced some consequences for the shady things that they were doing. But the false narrative that was being put out was that Lou Elizondo was a major contributor to CIFA, that he was a major contributor to these shady things that were happening within that group. And, like I said, these false narratives and lies. Now, this FBI report that was put out had mentioned Lou Elizondo's name, kind of giving him some connection to CIFA, but in the FBI report, he was mentioned once. He was mentioned in the report as forwarding an email from a higher up, so basically just part of a communication chain, and the email was in regards to funding of a contractor that wasn't performing. So the person who was was communicating with Lou Elizondo had mentioned that that this previous contractor wasn't performing and didn't believe they should be receiving some funds. And Lou Elizondo had basically just forwarded an email from a higher up saying that these funds were to go to this contractor. So that's the only time in this huge FBI report that his name was even mentioned. His name wasn't mentioned in any way with being involved in anything that would have was shady or shown that he had any idea of anything that was going on.
But
and it was just basically talking to Red Panda and basically just stripping away the narrative and getting him to admit that none of this information showed any kind of bad acting on Lou Elizondo's part.
Well, the whole thing with
narrative.
SIFA, if I remember correctly, Darren, was they were accusing him, tying his time with SIFA in with Amy Estridge, and I'll use a different word for it, but it sounds like it, and Rake, and that Mike and I and Lou were somehow involved in this poor woman's death, and it's just these fantasies that they put out there and try to connect the dots on. It's just lunacies.
Yeah, it's been part of a kind of an ongoing kind of connected narrative that they've been putting on Lou Elizondo for the last 3 or 4 years, and the false narrative that's been put on him has ranged anywhere from, like you said, that Lou Elizondo has been conducting SIFA activities against the UFO community, basically saying that he's been acting untowards against the UFO community, that they had said that they had heard that there was a connection between him and the murder of Amy Estridge, which has been ruled a suicide by pretty much everybody who knew her, who was involved. There has been false narratives of Lou Elizondo being the leader and responsible for a hate group or a harassment group on Twitter, that he was a Satanist, that he was a Scientologist, and that he, that basically just he's been trying to psyop the community. And I think that what we've seen with Age of Disclosure and the release of Age of Disclosure and his comments within that is that there has been a coordinated effort to discredit him. And so to me, it kind of looks like there might be ties to this effort to discredit him and these people who are now, on social media trying to do the same thing.
Right. And those people who are on media, they enamorize and glorify a lot in their videos and stuff they put out and their posts and everything. Dr. Stephen Greer, which is on the opposite side of Lou, and you just have to wonder what is their true tie to Greer, if any.
Well, exactly. And I had mentioned kind of previously the last time I was on the show with you guys that I had received 3 independent messages that were linking these people to Stephen Greer. Now, I haven't been able to yet come up with any solid proof, and it's all just speculation. But to me, it does look like it looks kind of shifty to me.
Yeah, Mike.
It does. Yeah, it's the fact that they seem to make the images of the AI videos they put out there of Hood Greer. They seem to idolize him, bring him up a lot. It could be connections to him with incentives for them to push this information against Lou Elizondo, because it's public knowledge that Lou Elizondo and Stephen Greer are not seeing eye to eye with each other for a long time now. So
I don't think they ever have seen eye to eye, Mike.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, the fact that they are so anti-Lou and they seem to idolize Stephen Greer, it could be one of the reason why they push this narrative the way that they do against Lou and anybody associated with Lou, like you and me, Thomas.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but they've been doing this, like Darren just pointed out, 3-4 years steady now. And they haven't let up at all. It's still ongoing. And now that the Age of Disclosure came out, they're really piling on top of it.
Well, they're in overtime at this point.
Yeah, because they want to get their version of things out, which is all disinformation and incorrect. And this is what they do, and they continue to do it. But we have, like Darren and other people out there as well, that are pushing back against them to dispel a lot of the false information that they have been systematically putting out there the entire time.
Right.
And continue to. So, and Darren challenges them right in their own spaces.
Yep.
Which is not an easy thing to do because they don't want to hear a lot of what he has to say because it's the truth that he's telling them. And they usually do their best to kick him back down and not let him speak. But it's why he also puts his own spaces up like we have in the past and pushes back against them.
Because you have to. That's the only way sometimes you can actually have the control of the button to keep yourself from getting censored, muted, or kicked out because you're not giving them the answer that they specifically want to hear.
Well, they specifically want the public to hear,
right,
which is false. Right. So that's the work that Darren and others that are out there have been pushing back against the entire time. And it's unfortunate that when we have a documentary like the one that just came out, and it has some genuine interest from the public about this topic. If they come on social media and they're not knowledgeable, and they hear these other people like Panda and Tupa talking about this, they don't know what to believe, and they could buy into a lot of that disinformation, which is not good.
Yeah, and due to their, their presence on X, they're, 8-10 hours a day, if not more, in spaces and everything on a regular basis. Some people have fallen into their web, like Eric Burleson and others who have joined their conversations and thinking that, they're reaching an audience, but it's kind of not necessarily the best people you'd want to go be telling your story with.
Well, Darren brought up a good point when he was talking to them about this. And he said when they had Representative Eric Burleson, why didn't they mention any of this false narratives that they've been putting out there directly to Burleson?
Yeah.
Because they didn't, right, Darren?
Yeah, when they had him in his space, there was no mention of it. And I think the reason why there was no mention of it is because I think they realized that if they would have brought something up like that, knowing that Burleson is somebody who is talking to people like David Grush, people like Lou Elizondo, that they would have seemed, crazy, to be able, to be saying these types of things. So when they'll tell these things to the public, they'll tell these things to the newbies who come into the community, people who are looking for answers. But the second that they actually have somebody who is actually involved, they don't bring it up just, I think, in fear of looking like they're crazy. If that was the real belief, and if it was, something that they were truly concerned about, I think, they would have or should have brought it up to somebody like Eric Burleson when they have him in the space. But they didn't end up doing that. So to me, what it looks like is it's basically just a narrative for the public. It's a narrative to twist the narrative to make people like Lou Elizondo, David Rush, people who have been working to push this ball down the field look bad, and to push their own narrative.
Because they're trying to get attention. They're trying to get clicks to their brand. They're trying to have people pay attention to what they're saying. Because it's also drama. So people like drama. It's like a soap opera. Like watching daytime television. People tune in
exactly what
to hear it. It's like an episode of Jerry Springer sometimes, Darren. And people tune in to listen to that, even just for entertainment. But they're putting false information out, and that could be dangerous.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you end up confronting these people, and you end up confronting these people with facts, and you're talking to them, and when you're disabling this narrative, that they're they turn around and they go from trying to confront with facts to personal slanders, to personal attacks, because that's all they have. They have nothing to back up their narrative. They have no facts to back up their narrative. And once especially when you enter a space where they're trying to to put this narrative, and you confront them, and you rip it down, you tear it apart, they resort to slander. They resort to, you know, calling people like horrible names and things like that because they have nothing to go on. And you know, that last space that I had when we were talking about the CIFA thing, that's exactly what I did. Is I decided to take one point to take them down on, and to strip them down, and that's exactly what I did, showing that this narrative about, you know, Lou Elizondo being this, you know, this person who is using these horrible tactics on people was absolutely false. You know, you can't say these things when somebody's name is only brought up in one, like once in an FBI report. And if he, you know, if there was anything, you know, shady on his part, I would assume that this FBI report, which was part of the investigation into, you know, what CIFA was doing, would have mentioned him more than once, you know, outside of a mention of him only forwarding an email. So, you know, you can see how they take these narratives and they exploit, and they make them, you know, into things that are much bigger than what they actually are, with, you know, with just false narratives and lies, which they can never produce any actual factual information for.
Right, and let's turn the tables here for a second and shine the spotlight back in their direction. Who are we talking about? We're talking about individuals, like you just pointed out, that are on the internet practically 24/7. They have no lives of their own. They're not professionals. Lou Elizondo is somebody who served in the military, raised a family, has done amazing work to protect this country and to bring the truth out about disclosure, and we're not alone on this planet. And who are they? They are individuals that live only to be on the internet. They are not professionals. Chupacabra is 40-year-old single male who makes AI videos and puts them on his account and spreads disinformation all over the internet against very credible people who work for the government and were professionals and have families, and they do not. Red Panda Koala just turned 31, and he's on the internet morning, noon, and night. And he's also single, and on his birthday recently, he spent his birthday not out celebrating. Instead, he was home on the internet and watching a Star Wars marathon and putting out false narratives on his accounts on social media. The other thing they do is they have these alt accounts that they use, and they try to knock down people like yourself and other accounts that are known out there, like Red Teal Octopus and Darcy Ware, who's a filmmaker. They use these alt accounts to try to get those accounts struck down. So this is what they are doing and who they are, which is not something that I would be proud of if I was in their shoes. And you're, you know, somebody who's a filmmaker who's putting together and doing all this work to try to bring the truth out to the public, because they don't know unless someone explains to them, the public, what's true and what isn't. And you do a hell of a job, Darren. I can't wait to see your documentary when it comes out.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, Mike. You know, it's hard when, you know, it's hard to kind of battle these narratives when there is this, like you were saying, like it's like a 24-hour propaganda cycle, and it's run like a propaganda cycle. You know, you have the Chupacabra, who is the media guy. You know, he produces the flashy media. He produces, you know, the videos that attract attention. You have people like Red Panda Koala, who at one time I can actually say was probably one of the best researchers, you know, up and coming in the field, if he would have stayed with what he was doing in producing his videos. But what he's basically what he's kind of turned into is this person who just propagates these false narratives through his own account, through his sock account, which is the Deja Vu 2, the King Milk Harassment Archive.
Correct. No, but look, even if he did good research at one point, then I haven't really seen anything worthwhile that he's put out at all. And all he does is continue to put the same garbage out there that backs up his friend Chupacabra, who's again 40, and Panda just turned 31. They're not professionals. They don't have anything that the people that they attack have. So if you compare them, and in the cold, hard light of day, you'll see you're talking about, and I refer to them as trolls, because that's what they are. Trolls are people that have no lives and live entirely behind their computer screen on the internet 24/7. That's who they are. That's what they are. It's what they do. And people that are not familiar with them, don't know their backgrounds, and don't know who they're listening to, like you said, Darren, they watch these videos they put out. They listen to the false information that they put out there without any evidence to back any of it up. It's just like you got Panda to admit in your space the other day. It's theory and conjecture. It's just their opinion. It's not evidence. And they tell everybody that it is. It's evidence. And people that don't know any better don't know what to believe. So it's disgusting, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's exactly the case, is that, they will constantly, tell people that, what they're putting out is evidence, when it isn't. Like, anybody who, knows anything about what actual evidence would be, they provide nothing that shows anything untoward, that has been done towards community from Lou Elizondo or any of the other people that they that they go against. But it's with as far as propaganda goes, the rule is with propaganda is that if you tell people something enough many times over, that in somebody's mind is going to become the truth,
right?
And even if it holds no basis in reality. And like I said, what you're seeing, like I said, is basically it's a propaganda cycle, and it's a coordinated propaganda cycle.
Kind of like in their statements of saying that Mike and I and Lou Elizondo doxed David Grush, which is the stupidest thing. But they've made video after video that I've taken down, video after video about this. And they keep on spreading it and getting it out there to where the average person who listens to some of their stuff or watches their tweets or stuff start to believe it. And that's the danger, like you're saying, Darren, with a real world example.
Yeah, and the other tactic that they do, and you're right about this as well, because anyone that sees any of their spaces, they will make the same points over and over and over, like 40 times in a row, and because what they're saying is not true, and they have no real proof. But if they tell it to you over and over and over and over again, and Tupa likes to talk over everybody to bring his point home, people that don't know any better will start to think, well, maybe some of this might be true, because look, he keeps repeating himself 40 times in a row, so maybe he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But that's just a tactic, Darren. It's not the truth. Furthest from the truth it could be.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
This is what they do.
Absolutely. If you if you're ever in a space that Red Panda Koala happens to be in, what you end up seeing is you end up seeing these like very carefully edited audio clips that he goes into spaces, takes them from podcasts, from videos, things like that. He edits them to appear a certain way, to sound a certain way. And in a space that will run 2 hours, he will play the same clip over and over, 7-8 times. And, how is that not, that kind of like that propaganda, like I've been saying, it's just it's clip the same clip after clip after clip, trying to push and reinforce a narrative. And if and it's especially with younger people coming into these spaces and people who are interested in things like that, because this younger internet generation who is very accustomed to social media and very accustomed to things like Instagram and TikTok and things like that, their attention span for knowledge is all 30-second to 60-second clips. So if you have somebody who's just barraging you with the same clip over and over of edited false information, that's going to stick. That's going to imprint into somebody's head, and that's going to shape somebody's belief and shape somebody's belief in a narrative. And if you can do that, and you can do that 12 hours a day, with different aspects, whether it's posts on social media, whether it's doing it in spaces, whether it's these YouTube short videos or whatever is out there, you can very well shape a narrative to whatever you want. And these are not small accounts. Like, we're not talking about accounts of people on social media who have 1,000 followers or 2,000 followers. These are people who have upwards of 60,000-70,000 people who are following them. So their reach is pretty pretty broad, and their reach is enough that these days they're getting the attention of people in the government, people like Burleson, people like Luna. And that's where I see kind of the danger in it, is that with these false narratives with no proof that's getting out there, when this narrative is making it to people who are working on creating things in government so that this information can get out. If you're putting false narratives about, say, like people like Lou Elizondo or people like David Grush or things like that, you're creating mistrust in these people.
Right. And you're casting them. You're not just defaming them. You're also casting them in a false light, which is another form of defamation that they like to do, unfortunately, on a regular basis, Darren.
Yeah, absolutely, Thomas. Like, it's, and I find it to be quite just kind of disgusting that these people have. I don't understand where their hatred and where this kind of narrative comes from, and so to me, it seems like there has to be some kind of outside influence on it.
Yeah. Well, they were funded for a while by Keemstar when they were doing Skyfire News for a period of time. He tried to contain them, tried to keep them within the box of what he wanted. They wouldn't do it, but he actually paid them for a period of time and actually helped build them up to, for a bit to where they're at today, unfortunately.
But I gotta tell you, Darren, I'm suspicious of their subscriber count, their followers, because I've seen them jump 5,000 followers at a shot. That is not something that is naturally occurring, I can tell you. You have a real account on
Yeah,
Twitter.
I've seen that on YouTube channels too, Mike. Someone who's got a channel, they'll get 200-300 views on a video and such. There's no activity on the channel, but they're going up thousands of viewers in a day, or close to 10,000 viewers in less than a month. But there's no traffic to back it up, so it's just the numbers there are for status than anything, because if you don't have the viewers who are coming to watch your content, what's the purpose of having a viewer base?
You could have 1 million views, but if you're not getting, you could have 1 million followers.
Right.
If you only have a handful of views, what are you really doing? That's a good point. And it seems to be the case with their accounts.
And it seems to be the ones who are really involved closely with Greer or partners with Third Phase of the Moon, or others who are on Twitter and YouTube. And there's just a bunch of them. I've seen the numbers. There's places you can go to go ahead and watch where it tracks the analytics on all these different accounts. So it's easy to find out what's going on. So tuning in sound levels in question, mine is a bit lower. Well, yeah, because Darren's is really high. Sorry. Darren, you fixed your mic really well, by the way.
The audience is having you drown them out. So
No, that's okay. I can control that a bit. There we go.
You get adjusted.
Oh, yeah.
Sir, you have your hand up. You have a question for Darren or Thomas or myself.
Oh, I kind of jumped in late, so I'm not too sure what you're talking about. But I noticed there was a lot of people on. What is it?
We're talking about the trolls on X.
And they seem to be pushing, like, I guess they're trying to say Lou is trying to create this small drip disclosure narrative, and he's working for the government or something. I don't get it, but I think there's the only narrative I really see in this whole game. This is my opinion, is that you got whistleblowers coming forward, like Rush, etc., coming forward, and then the government's narrative is that these guys are full of crap and they have no evidence to back it up. Right? That's the only narrative I see.
Right.
Right. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Okay.
But let me remind you, sir, the government authorized David Grush to testify and say the things that he said publicly. They knew what he was going to say. He didn't tell us under oath anything that the government didn't know he was going to mention. So all of these whistleblowers who come forward, they're not giving us secret information we're not supposed to know. They're only giving us information that the government is allowing them to tell the public. It's not like, they're more like spokesmen for the government as far as what information the government wants the public to know about this topic. And that's how it's been the entire time. Even from Lou, he has high security clearances. He's only allowed to publicly mention the things that the government allowed him to speak publicly about. And that's true for all of them. So unless your name happens to be Edward Snowden and you left the country, anything that you're saying publicly was allowed for you to say by the government. People sometimes lose track of that. Thomas and I do not.
Yeah.
So you have to take all of that with a grain of salt. They're telling us exactly what they want us to know. No more, no less.
Absolutely.
No, I'd love to see someone like Edward Snowden come out on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be something we need. Tim Burchett has said that publicly. Please, if you have the information, steal it, wheel it out, and show us before you get arrested.
But can we agree, like, that the gatekeepers of this subject don't necessarily, yeah, okay, they're testifying to this stuff, but the gatekeepers don't necessarily want to see David Grush and Elizondo, et cetera, come and testify in front of Congress. Even if they're saying things they're allowed to say, they still don't want them to do that, right?
No, you're right, they don't.
Well, you got to remember some of the things, Mike, that are underneath control of the Department of Energy. If you go ahead, leak anything, it's punishable by execution.
Right. So it has the execution clause in it, termination clause.
Yeah.
If you cross that line, they could charge you under the Espionage Act and sentence you to death. Yeah. It's one of the reasons Edward Snowden will not come back to this country to have his day in court, because it's now set up under that where he wouldn't be able to launch a defense. That's why he stays over in Russia. So these people that are talking, the government doesn't want them necessarily to say certain things, but anything that they do say, the government is authorized for them to say it.
And that's only because the government can't legally do anything about what they are saying. It's basically saying you're allowed to say that, so say it.
Well, yes, they're allowed to say everything that they have testified before under oath, and they haven't gone over or beyond that line. And the government controls what they know and what they're able to say. And if you watch The Age of Disclosure, you saw that throughout the film. They were only saying what they were allowed to say, no more, no less.
Yep. It's censored, edited.
Yeah, controlled, I would say.
Exactly.
Controlled disclosure.
Yeah. Since we have been talking about Lou, I've got a little aside here. I've got a 4.5-minute video of Lou Elizondo on News Nation talking about the age of disclosure. You know how Lou always drops things here and there. Let's go ahead and give this a watch, and then we'll be right back to talking more with Darren, the back, and the audience. Here we go, folks.
He's also executive producer of the documentary. Lou, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I just got to ask you first about what I was talking to Dan Farr about. 2 different alien species. Can you tell me anything about them?
Well, what you're referring to was the alleged potential landing of Holloman Air Force Base back in the 1950s, where a vehicle, a craft of unknown origin, had landed at the edge of the airfield and initiated contact with individuals from both the Central Intelligence Agency and the United States Air Force. And if that's the case, think of the consequences of that, right? That means that somewhere someone had maybe perhaps pre-coordinated or arranged or was aware of this potential landing, enough so that individuals on the base were actually alerted and prepared for and waiting for these craft, right? So that kind of gives you an idea that perhaps there was some sort of dialogue or some sort of communication, perhaps even before that event took place.
That was not something that you have firsthand knowledge about. You weren't there. What do you have firsthand knowledge about?
Well, boy, how much time do you have, Elizabeth?
We've got about 7 minutes.
Okay, so as you may know, I ran the government's program at the Pentagon roughly from around 2010 called ATIP to about 2017 when I resigned in protest.
ATIP is the program that is in charge of studying alien spacecraft
Yeah,
and
that's
reverse
what it was.
engineering, right?
Correct. Despite, well, not exactly. It was the Pentagon's investigation into UFOs, or what we now call UAP. And it was replaced later by an organization that was called the UAP Task Force, which, by the way, one of those individuals, the leader of that, was also in our documentary. He's also an executive producer, Jay Stratton. And then later on, Arrow replaced that organization. So there's been a lot of people are surprised to learn that the Pentagon, A, studied UFOs, but B, continues to study UFOs and has for a very, very long time.
We know from the documentary that they're not just studying UFOs. You say we're trying to reverse engineer from the spacecraft that we have found, use that technology, and that we're in a secret sort of arms race with Russia and China, who both also have alien spaceships. The documentary reports that the Soviets found a big one back in 1989. Do we know when the Chinese found one, and how do we know that anyway?
Sure. Well, let me give you some more compelling information here, perhaps, that you may not be aware of. Just recently, there was another hearing on the Hill under oath, and one of the individuals to testify under oath was a journalist named George Knapp. George Knapp testified that back in the early 90s, right when the Berlin Wall came down, there was this brief period of cooperation between former Soviet Union and the United States, and he received a handful of very classified documents from Russian generals about their UFO program and the reverse engineering program, and he actually successfully smuggled them out of Russia and brought them here to the United States. So there's a lot of information suggesting that both Russia and other adversaries have their own UAP program. And in fact, China has already admitted it publicly in a newspaper that they have their own UFO program and have been petitioning the United Nations in order to help lead a worldwide investigation. Now, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with China necessarily doing that, but it shows the level of eagerness that some of our adversaries are displaying towards this topic of UAP. Remember, this is a topic that for a long time was really fraught with stigma and taboo. And I think only now we're beginning to get to the point where within the American psyche, we can actually have a serious conversation and not think about, little green men or Elvis on the mothership or tinfoil hats.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below.
There we go. But really, Mike, it's not little green men, it's little gray men for that fact, just to be clear.
Right.
But it seems the media has been stuck on calling it little green men forever, so one way or the other, it's still being acknowledged.
Yeah, they also like to play X-Files music, but they haven't been doing that lately, which I'll take as a good sign.
Yeah. I'll take anything when it comes to disclosure and trying to bring out the truth. Wes, you're in the back. Your hand is up, my friend. Go ahead.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey. So, yeah, I've listened to everything you guys have had to say tonight and like forever. I'm wanting to stay relevant here, like as far as stuff you guys haven't talked about. I think that amnesty is a big thing. I think what Elizondo talked about in the documentary as far as forgiveness is a big, big part of this, because it's like, all right, like we come clean. We tell the American people, we tell the people that like all of this is going on. Do you know what the ramifications of that would be? Do you have any idea how immeasurable things, like insurmountable consequences? Dude, nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about the fact of forgiveness. Like I feel like forgiveness has to be a thing moving forward. Like, let's drill it to the people that, you know, when they come clean, like there's no consequences to the government. There's nothing, there's no forgiveness for what they've done. You guys know this. You all know it, and nobody talks about it. There's no forgiveness for what they've done. So if we talk about a plan for forgiveness, you know what I mean, when they come clean, then I think that would lend a lot. And that's just one thought I've got. I could talk forever on what the hell you guys are talking about, but like that's something I never hear about, man.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, dude.
So in order for people to come forward, Lou's talked about this in detail before. It's about giving them an amnesty, but limiting the amnesty to a certain period of time, giving those with the knowledge and the know who have maybe done things. It would give them a chance to go ahead and bring the truth out. But after a while, shutting that down and then moving forward like you would in a normal criminal investigation, because that's kind of what we're dealing with here. So do you think it would be, but do you think it would be like amnesty permanent, or are you just talking short term?
No, I think it has to be permanent, because the consequences, like the things that have happened, and are, I mean, the consequences like to the actions of the government of past, like it could argue it immeasurable. Yeah. Like people died, people disappeared. There are, I mean, what was it? What did they say? Almost $1 trillion at least spent in taxpayer money. Like, there's no forgiving any of that. And then there's lying, like bold-faced lying to everybody, gaslighting, the whole nine. Like, there's no forgiving that. So if you want the truth, all right, instead of saying, well, I don't know why they're not doing this. I don't know why they're not doing this. Like, what's going on? Why aren't they? Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're like afraid of the backlash. Like I would be.
Well, if it's anything that's involved with the Department of Energy, they can't talk about it because they can be executed under the statutes of the law that are in play right now. Yeah.
Well, I didn't even get into energy.
I
haven't.
Absolutely.
Me personally, I think energy is the source of it.
It is, but it's trying to. If you heard anything from Dr. Lakatsky, who's come out as part of the program through the DOE, he had Q clearance, which is a top clearance for DOE, Department of Energy, that includes, if you want to call it, anything to deal with non-human intelligence. Their job is to look at this solely and upfront, looking at it just for military applications and no more, no less. Granted, there could be ways we could use this for energy, but the amount of exposure it would get and the fear that the government has of even just inspiring our enemies out there, which would be Russia, China, whoever else is on that list. Jeff Bezos, joking, but you never know where it could potentially go, and they're just in this cold war that they've been going for a while, and it's a matter of can we get them out of this train of thought? Everyone's talked about the impacts it could have to energy, to a lot of different stuff, but you got to remember, people with the energy, people who want this stuff for their own, have a lot of money, just like all the money that's been been shipped over to Ukraine. Well, look at all the money that came back to all these big Democrats as far as donors coming back from Ukraine. Why do they need all these hundreds of millions of dollars coming from a country that we're giving all the money to? You know, it's a take-two situation. If I could, we got a couple more people up in back. We'll call in again in a bit, Wes. Darren, go ahead, and then we got somebody else.
Gene, we got Gene.
Gene,
Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I think Lou reflected on it well on one of his last interviews. I think it was with the Good Trouble show, when talking about amnesty and talking about how incentivizing it, right? Like you have to give people a reason to be able to come out with this information. But I also think that with amnesty, there has to be kind of levels to this amnesty, right? You have to be able to put into place things that say, okay, well, it wasn't right that this was done. And you have to put in, some kind of punishment to make sure it doesn't happen again. This has been 80 years of secrecy, right? And if there are people out there who can come out with some substantial information to get the truth out, these people should be incentivized to do so. But there's also people who are responsible for, a lot of horrendous things. And I think in some of those cases, in some of the most extreme cases, that those people need to be held responsible for what they did.
Whether or not they did this stuff themselves, or potentially they're extending programs that have been in place that are just flat out evil. Here's an exchange. You can have so many of our citizens for research, etc. However, this is what you're going to get out of it. There's nothing you ever get for free. Darren?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with with this push in the government, you're seeing a lot of things starting to come to light. But with the what they were talking about with the Air Force and the CIA holding back all of this information, this is something that that really needs to be dug into, and really needs to kind of be pushed out into out either into the government or into the public. But I think the secrecy is breaking down, with, especially when you're seeing Christopher Mellon coming on, and talking about it and things like that. These are things that are starting to come to light, and although it's slowly, I think it's nothing but beneficial, for disclosure. So
yeah, excellent points, Darren. Any thoughts from your side, Mike? Before we get to Gene.
No, I agree with what Darren said.
100%.
The only line in the sand I would draw, the red line, would be that if they were directly involved in a capital crime, like murder, and somebody lost their life as a result of that, for national security purposes, that's where I would say that there could be penalties that they might face in one form or another at one point.
Right.
But that's about it. That's where I would draw the line.
Yeah. Now, if you remember,
Gene.
If you remember really quick, about 3 years ago when Danny Sheehan was on the channel with Lou Elizondo and Sean Cahill, Danny outlined a complete plan of how he was going to challenge the constitutionality of the National Disclosure Act and turn the clock back to 1947, when, I'll say it again, when we became the national security state of America, because he said it wasn't constitutional. But somehow someone got to him and he completely left that out the side door. Then he started focusing on the UAPDA and other areas, and it's a mess.
It is. So now we have Gene. Thank you for waiting patiently, Gene.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I think I love Wes's passion. Darren gives such an insightful, framing of the scope of the issue. And I think overall, you're potentially looking at something that is the moral, ethical, and perhaps even numbers-wise scale of a Nuremberg type situation. We're not just talking about things that might have happened in the United States. Things might have happened other places as well. Just today, I saw a story about they're prosecuting some 100-year-old, German that was a soldier at a concentration camp, and it's not to try and create a moral equivalency, between it, because on the one hand, I think there were people say, well, do we go that far on the issue? And to an extent, I would say, human rights are human rights. So if we're going to be examining, not just going forward and how do we prevent it again, but what does accountability in the past look like? I think the only way to handle that, and if we're getting into grounds of, agreements with NHI to allow this, that, or the other, I mean, you're really looking at a super complex system that's not without precedent for lawyers to wrap their brains around and set things forward. But I think, that's all going to have to be laid out and specified up front before anybody who was involved in doing those things, who gave the orders or followed through on the orders, before we're really going to hear from them and get answers. So I think that's going to be a much longer term discussion when it, within the grand scope of everything that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, it's like what they did in Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation, to try to get to all of the atrocities that had occurred. They had to give these people an open door to be able to come out and speak honestly about it. I think we would need something similar along these lines, to have these people actually come out and speak freely about it without fear of prosecution. So, but after all that comes out, if you wanted to, like you said, hold some sort of a Nuremberg trial after all the information was out, something like that could also work, I think, on the people who didn't come forward.
And also, Mike, I can bring up until as recent as 10 years ago, I haven't checked since then, but about 10, 12 years ago, I was aware of that they were still prosecuting people in Cambodia who were part of the Pol Pot regime and everything that went on there. So there are a lot of cases where you've dealt with genocides in other areas and really serious things that have taken place where amnesty for anybody, no matter how you were involved in this, is never an option. It's just depends on how many pounds of flesh people want, but more importantly, how bad are the sins that those people have committed against humanity as a whole. What have they, if they've truly sold us out in different ways, and they've kept it away from us, and they knew what was here, what was going on, more importantly, what's coming. Absolutely. Put it this way, Mike, there's more than enough fentanyl on the streets of the United States right now to take care of them easily. We don't need to go ahead and stock up anything special. Gene?
And the unfortunate thing when it comes to any kind of accountability at that level, the U.S. we don't acknowledge the international courts of human rights.
Right.
No, we don't. You're right. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
What if it comes out, Mike, just throwing one national thing that's out there, that the reason we enabled and allowed abortion to go through so much as we did is because we made a deal with the non-human intelligence. If you stop taking our people, we'll give you all this material. We'll change our laws, whatever, make it easier for people to go ahead and do this procedure, but then you're going to get everything you need. Now, they're not actually taking human lives, but they're taking human lives. You know what I mean? There's a give and a take there.
They're taking human genetic material, I guess.
Bingo, right, yeah. What else are you going to be doing with all this stuff?
Yeah, but like you said before, we have a lot of hands that are up back here.
Oh, I got you.
I think TVT is next.
Yeah. We got TVT and then Wes and then Darren. Go ahead, guys.
I would like to see some kind of artificial intelligence implementation in order to help disclosure that has a certain amount of rules and regulations that will protect society in a way and the people that are coming forward with disclosure, in order to get some answers to things. I think if
have you heard about the new
outside of human judgment to make a decision on disclosure would be phenomenal for us. I think. We
Yeah,
could
you'd
learn a
have
lot
to
of
see the rules though and see how the AI is put together. But it just comes down to it. It's you can, but it's not for fusion energy, but there's a new fusion program or something that's going on in the DOE where they want to open up all this different, if you want to call it, knowledge bases, including 40,000 different scientists that are across all the national labs into a single Department of Energy AI system. Mike, it almost sounds like what they're trying to figure out now is how we're going to take this and get this ability to bring everyone's mindset together to try and figure out some of these UFO crashes and the materials and whatever we're trying to get there. And they're kind of announcing the program without necessarily announcing what it is.
Genesis mission.
Genesis, thank you. Oh, yep. Genesis, isn't that was that the name of the platform from Terminator?
Star Trek 2, the Wrath of Khan, the Genesis device.
Yeah.
It was a weapon of mass destruction. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I would just like to see kind of like a credible book without an author, because maybe some of these people have good intentions, and they're trying to do what's best for us, maybe in a way by not telling us. But if they could be protected from themselves, then maybe that would be something that could be credible. I don't know.
Yeah, but I'll restate an old saying that I've known for a long time that comes up every so often. Those who can do, those who can't teach, those who can't do or teach write books. We have to be careful of who's writing those goddamn books. Just saying. Let's get on to our next person that has their hand up. That'd be Wes. Go ahead. And then we got Darren. Go ahead, Wes.
Hey, so I saw a bunch of comments here, many of which agree with what I said about amnesty.
Yeah.
And there were a couple that were like, hey, amnesty for murder? No. So that's not what I'm advocating here. Obviously, amnesty for murder is not condonable. It's not okay.
Right.
Okay. And they would never condone, they would never hold themselves accountable to murder. I'm trying to shortcut this.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the implications are immeasurable based on what's happened to us, right? So I'm trying to shortcut this and say, hey, like, dude, like, all fouls are fair because nobody's going to hold themselves accountable to what's happened, to the atrocities. So we implement a thought in the culture to say, hey, look, like, what it is, what it is. Like, that's it. Like, let's move forward. Like, yeah, and also another thing I hear on the media a lot, we're not alone in the universe. No, we're not alone on the freaking planet. The planet. I want to hear that implemented more. Like, the planet. We're not alone on this planet. But yeah, like, I didn't mean to offend anybody by saying amnesty. Like, I'm trying to shortcut it because that's the only way it's going to happen now, is if we just like start to implement this in the culture, that it's like, hey, we are where we are. Like, we're seeing what we see in the skies. Like, it is what it is. Like, implement some kind of legislature that grants a certain leniency to what it is that happened, our forefathers, or whatever, dude. Like, it isn't us. I feel like that's holding us back because I feel if it's me, the pushback is super fearful. It's super fearful. It's like, well, what if we come out and say, hey, we're not alone on this planet, and we haven't been for decades? Like, do you not know what the pushback would be? Like, are you serious? Like, with how many people have gone missing and how many people's careers have been destroyed? Like, and the taxpayers' dollars, like, my God. Yeah. So amnesty has to be at the forefront of this to push this forward. It's like if you get into an argument with your partner, right? You're like,
passion.
All right.
Yeah, we got you, Wes. Good point. We follow.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I need to put out a correction. In Terminator, Genesis. Let me
Oh,
get
boy.
to you. Genesis is a global operating system being developed by Cyberdyne System that links private, public, and military networks. It basically is a new public facing of Skynet. Okay. It's basically once Skynet is Genesis is activated, it becomes Skynet. So it's the foundation for it. So yes, Laura, they've got that new program called Genesis, which doesn't have good connotations. And have you heard that Elon Musk wants to start taking the H200s AI systems, putting them into orbit where they cannot be controlled by humans and they'll be powered by the sun? Basically an unstoppable entity in orbit. Does that sound interesting?
No, because we can still shoot things down out of orbit. So if that was the case,
If we can
they
control
could
the
get
things
taken
we're
down.
shooting down, absolutely. Let's go on next to who has their hand up next. Darren, I believe. Go ahead.
Yeah, Darren.
Yeah, I think before we can have this discussion about amnesty, I think we have to understand what the scope of the phenomenon is, because right now the discussion is about nuts and bolts, crash retrievals, alien, the biologics, right? But the government still hasn't even mentioned or bothered to look into, the experiencer phenomenon. So, we can talk about amnesty right now for, people in these secret programs who are collecting craft or biological entities or involved in reverse engineering. But what is the involvement in the experiencer side of things? Is there military involvement in abductions? What is the compliance with the government or these special programs with the abduction phenomenon? Because if we start delving into that those are some horrendous things that have been put on humanity. Aside from murder, just the biological testing, all of these other horrible things that have been happening with that phenomenon.
You mean the COVID vaccines? Yeah.
Where do you draw these lines, right? So I don't know if it has to be something that is kind of like systematically rolled out, where it's like if you were involved in these certain programs, we're offering some kind of amnesty right now for this. But we've only really looked at only a portion of this phenomenon and a portion of what's going on. And until we have a broader scope and a broader understanding of what's going on, where do we draw the lines with amnesty?
That's true. And I know Wes has been pretty passionate about that, and I hear that. And I guess we just have to map it out and figure what it qualifies, what doesn't, and what are the dangers for giving it. But more importantly, it could happen within the United States, but there could be international tribunals and other stuff, depending on how far-reaching, because it seems for a lot of countries, at least, who are our partners in military and such, we seem to take the lead in a bunch of the research and things that are going on. But then again, there have been talks about craft that have been coming down in enemy areas that we still send people in to try and recover the stuff because we think we need to get it, because if we don't get it, our opponents are going to get it. But it also, it's just, it's a catch-22 situation. There could be good out of it. There could be bad out of it. And I guess we need to find that balance somewhere to get to the truth.
Yeah, you're right. We do. But you've also said for a long time now publicly that the truth is going to come from the top down.
That's the only way.
Executive branch, right. If he doesn't declassify all of the secrets, we're not going to have one single person that's going to be able to give all that to us. Only the president.
Yeah.
Right, Thomas?
It's the only individual who can get the head of the DOE and the head of the CIA and himself to sign the papers to go ahead and bring some of the stuff out that's classified in the DOE that the president even can't even bring out on his own. They've locked it up that good.
Mm-hmm. But he's the only one that can unlock it.
Yep, that's true.
I know.
And I suppose if he wants to unlock it, he brings the head of the DOE in his office along with the head of the CIA, and he frickin' strong arms them and gets them to sign all off right there, not like he's sending communications, because all that stuff is monitored by the wrong people.
No, you're absolutely right about that. But that's how we started the show off tonight, talking about if this will be the disclosure president. Time will tell. He may be motivated to do that. I'd certainly like to see it. It would certainly hurry things along to get us closer to the truth. So we'll see what's in store now that we're getting to the end of the year for the new year. Hopefully, something like this could happen at one point.
Yeah. And the thing is, we don't know what the energy is. People saying, oh, yes, they use 0 point energy. That means they're just pulling it out of somewhere. They may be doing something else. We don't know. All we know is it's at least from our standpoint, it's beyond the scope and ability of humanity to figure out what this stuff is.
In the end, that's what it's going to boil down to.
Yeah.
What we determine.
Yeah, and one additional thing that was in the news, Mike, with regards to disclosure and stuff, there's been rebuttals coming out with regards to the statement that was made, I believe, by Hal Puthoff with regards to the crashed UAP craft, him calling it out as gifts, as something to go ahead and it would be something where they're giving it to us as a test to see if we can figure this stuff out. But I believe there's been other people who've come forward yet again over the last week that have been stating that, no, there's a battle going on between multiple alien races, and that's why we're seeing some of these craft that are crashing.
Maybe, but we're not going to know until we finally get the truth, and then we'll have a better idea of what might be going on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Gene, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah, that's, just real quick. That's why I say for all the complexities of the issues, all of the apparatus that's involved that would be needed to bring this to light, that's why I think the next move, if there's going to be one that takes us on that path, would be a presidential commission. And the byproduct of that becomes the roadmap of what disclosure looks like. It helps to set the legislative priorities, helps to bring the institutional actions that all the agencies need to take and bring forward, and it somewhat can serve to frame develop the legal framework.
Exactly. And for our audience, I also want to remind them that you are the author of the book Engineering Infinity by your father-in-law, who was working on UAP reverse engineering for the former Soviet Union 40 plus years ago.
But he's got a newer book out there, Mike. Gene, why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, thanks. And so it's, I like to describe it as the origin story before all this happened. It's titled Unconventional, True Story of Oil Intelligence and Consequence. And it's essentially the background to how the government interacts with the oil and gas industry globally as a matter of national security, the apparatus that makes it all come together through the intelligence communities. And there's a lot of overlap that I found that really inspired me to finish writing it. Since I came into this community, there's these systems in place, and it's same play, different actors.
Pretty much. That's a very good point,
Yeah.
Gene. I agree.
And I love to talk to you about sometimes off the channel about the things that have been seen and going on in the Gulf of Oman. It seems to be a hot spot where there's a lot of oil rigs and things going on that you guys, when you were involved with the oil companies, may have encountered.
Tons of things. And, I found a few UAP cases, never came across them while I was in. Now I'm interested to find them. But, we dealt with things like piracy, on a daily basis, a lot of which, maybe makes it into news blips. But the book overall, the challenge is similarly to this, as you're standing there putting the gas into your tank, what makes that happen is a lot of things that you probably would not be happy with.
Or the taxes we have to pay on top of the fuel that we're actually pumping into our tank, like in Washington State, where I just paid $5.19 a gallon for super unleaded.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of and a lot of that's transportation, but everybody likes to
add their tariff to it. Let's say.
Oh yeah. I think they added like 10 or 12 billion in additional taxes this year, and the state of Washington is almost still 2 billion in debt because it's a heavy Democrat-run state, and unfortunately, they take the tax and spend approach to everything. And now we even have looks like Microsoft, among others, who is threatening to go ahead and leave the state at this point because of the heavy taxes. Just crazy. It's where it was founded.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's you could do a whole Disclosure Tonight oil and gas edition and go down just as many rabbit holes.
Oh, it would be a blast. Absolutely.
And you'll join us when we do an episode like that, Gene. It'll be a lot of fun.
Well, considering where UFO news is going, it may be happening sooner than you think. It could still be UFO, a UFO angle on it, but just, disclosure in general is important for the public.
It is. And Gene is chock full of information.
Yeah.
So, we'll be picking his brain further down the road.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, if you look at the clock, where did all the time go? I want to thank the people in the back. We have a new person in the back. Wes, thank you for coming in tonight. A lot of good questions and stuff. Hope you come back again. It's great having you here. I want to thank everybody else for being around in the back, Mike and everybody. More importantly, and Gene and everybody who's back there, and I'll go through all the names in a second. I want to go ahead and thank everybody for coming out to this episode of Disclosure Tonight. More importantly, I want to thank the people who gave us some super chats. Yeah, we are a fan-funded program. Appreciate everybody coming out. If you haven't subscribed yet, what the hell are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up if you could. We'd appreciate it, my friends. More importantly, I want to thank the people who gave us super chats. That includes, let's get into this, Rico. Rich Cochran, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Not once, but twice. Thank you very much. While we remain a warning species, we will be alone. We haven't ever been alone. Thank you again, V. Simon, Faze Will, Kane Northrup, Fugu, appreciate it. Frank T, Anonymous Rex, and starting off our super chats tonight was Gizmo. We appreciate everyone's love and support for what we do here. We try our best to give you the latest disclosure news, and we'll be finding new things to be talking about as disclosure doesn't pick up in the way that it should. Mike, I want to appreciate you for coming out here tonight, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. This is the day after Thanksgiving. I would have missed it for the world.
Yeah.
And thank you for putting this together. Great job, Thomas.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend. And as we usually say did I pin that somehow? Let me unpin that. And as we usually say, Mike, at the end of every episode of Disclosure Tonight, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everyone, but
go back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you in flip side. Good night, everybody. We'll see you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.